Hi, my name is Barbara Martinez, and I was going to talk to you a little bit about test administration and analysis. Test administration should be done very thoughtfully. We need to evaluate the material we're giving our students, create our blueprint, create our plans, and go off of that as we build their test. We need to explain to our students what the expectations are in writing. Also, it needs to be so that when they take their test, they know what the rules are and what they need to be doing during their test and what is the expectation after their test. It is important that we keep them well informed so that they are not finding out later something that they did wrong, and that way we can make sure that they are feeling comfortable with starting their exam. We have to make sure that we give them their test in an environment that is comfortable and not too warm or too cold, just that it's a very open environment with good air movement, and that the lighting is well enough that they can see for their test and not have to struggle. Make sure that it's quiet, that there's not distractions. Make sure that people know that there's a test going on, so that nobody's just walking in during this test and interrupting students and distracting them where they can't recall what they're studying and what they're trying to accomplish. We need to also tell them about their belongings. They should have no personal belongings in their room. We need to make sure that they leave their backpacks and all the stuff they would normally bring to class in their car. We do allow them to bring their cell phone in. They can have that, but it has to be put at the front of the room in a spot up on the desk, and that it has to be on silent so there's no interruptions and no phones going off in the middle of the class. We'll supply them with the pencil, and give them scratch paper that they can use for their test. And we will also make sure that if there's a computer test, that they have a computer that they can use. That way they just need to bring themselves to class, and they don't have to really think about all the other things that they could have with them. Having things in their belongings with them can give them a little more leeway for not doing the right things on the exam, for sharing information that they shouldn't share. There are some students that need accommodations. There are students that struggle with learning and need that extra time that we can give them. They may have a tutor that they go through during times, and the school does make sure that is available for them, and their tutor may have ideas of how they might do better with their testing. We need to try to decrease their anxiety by giving them a safe test environment. Sometimes they need to be in a room alone when they take a test so that they're not distracted. We can also give them a little more time at times to take their test, and that will help them to be able to not feel the struggle to get done so quickly. They may also need to have their test read to them out loud. That is something that we can also do. If we're going to give them a test in a separate room, then it's important that we have a proctor in that room to assist them in making sure that they're doing the right things during their test also. We want to make sure if they have questions, they can get them answered, so they're not feeling anxious. The thing of having it in a quiet room like that, when students get up from a test, that if they're all in the same room and certain students get done faster than others, it can increase the anxiety of a student and make them feel like, why am I not done? What's going on? And make it hard for them to concentrate and get back into the test because they're thinking about why they're not done yet. So having it in a separate place for the students that do struggle is maybe a positive thing for them. Test integrity, this is a big one. Cheating is something that can really destroy a classroom. We want to make sure that students understand the expectations and that cheating is not allowed, and that if they're caught cheating, there will be consequences. Students that cheat could be kicked out of their program, could fail their test. It just depends on what the rules are. Students have friends sometimes, and they'll get together and want to make a plan that they might come in and, I'll share my information. We'll try to get through this together, and that's just not the right thing. So when we set up our test room, we want to make sure that we don't allow friends to sit together, and that we kind of do a random thing where they can draw a card and sit by who they have to sit with, and also keep them far enough apart that they're not sitting right next to somebody where they could see their paper. Make sure that they can have enough space that it is conducive for them to take their test and not somebody else to be able to look at it. Make sure that when people have questions, they just raise their hand and you go to them, and make sure there's more proctors in the room to make sure that when you're with the student that somebody else isn't doing the wrong thing. We know that this is against, it's wrong for people to cheat, and, it's against God, it's against, what's right, and so we need to make sure that we can make sure that doesn't happen. The other thing that is with the fact that, students are cheating, these are nursing students. These are students that are going to be our future nurses. And nurses make mistakes every day. And if you make a mistake, you have to go forward and you have to talk to somebody and explain what you did and take responsibility. And a student that will cheat on a test may not have the integrity to do that. So we have to make sure that we're putting out nurses that will be in the future the type of nurse that is honest and has integrity, especially for our patients. After we finish the test, we need to do a test analysis. We need to put the test into a computer and see, once we've graded the test, let it show us what could have been done differently, as far as how well the students do on this test, how well they do on certain questions. Doing this by hand is pretty much almost seems like impossible. So having a computer that can run these numbers for us and give us those results can help us in the future as we are making tests for our students, that the tests may be better, for them, without having, the questions that nobody got right, or, just to kind of evaluate those things would be good. There are different ways that we can do a test analysis. We can do a test retest. That's where if we were to test this test, how would it test again, in the future, with a different student but the same test. We can do parallel form reliability. We can do internal consistency, split half reliability coefficient. There's the Cooter-Richardson formula that we can use, coefficient alpha. These are all different things that we can do to evaluate our tests to see that we have the right tests for our students, the reliable test. One that is used quite frequently is the KR20, and this is Cooter-Richardson 20, Formula 20. This one shows reliability by answers that are right or wrong. So this can only be used in those type of questions where it's either right or wrong, and it will give us an answer as to how reliable our test is. We have to make sure when we do a test that we have a test that's reliable. So with the Cooter-Richardson test, it will, if it's 0.8 or higher, it is a good test. If it is less than that, that test is not really reliable and really shouldn't be considered valid to use for our grading of our students. It's not fair to give them a grade based on a test that's not reliable. We need to make sure that when we're getting our tests ready that they are reliable tests, and we have other instructors read our test and make sure that they're appropriate and being able to answer those questions, maybe more than one instructor reading it and going over it and giving us input. We want to make sure for our students that we give them the best that we can and that we take that extra time and make that effort to assure that they're getting the right test. Our test needs to have reliability and validity. We need to make sure, again, that we do the computer calculations and we get the test figured out, and we can learn from that and make the test different in the future if we need to. We need to make sure that if it's not a valid test, we don't hold our students, if it's not a reliable test, that we don't hold our students accountable for it, that we figure out what we need to be doing differently. It is not fair to our students that we give them a test that's not up to par. If they're going to take a grade on it, it should be reliable. In the future, we need them to be able to take the NCLEX, and we need them to have had tests that were reliable and valid that can show their learning, and so they can pull that information when they need it in the future. After the tests, we need to do a test review with our students. This is where we can sit down with a group, or we can sit down with all of them, and we can go through our test and make sure we go through the questions that they didn't understand and help them understand them, and we can listen to what they have to say and why they answered the questions the way they did, what they got out of it. This is not a time when they can complain and make a ruckus over our test, and this is a time that we can talk in a way that's appropriate, and if it becomes inappropriate, then it stops. They have to understand the expectation is that this is a time that they can explain to us and we're listening to them, and that it is respectful, and that's just their chance to have a voice. So we can also do it via email, where we could have a certain couple days where they can send in why they felt the way they did, give us the information, and we can discuss it with them. I think in a group setting, it's probably a good way to help all the students learn together. So I do like that better. But again, it could be either one, and it has its, positives and negatives for which way to do it. Some pros are and cons, or advantages and disadvantages are, One advantage is it gives the students a chance to have a voice. It gives them a chance to figure out what they did wrong and learn from that. Another advantage is it helps the instructor understand why they answered the questions the way they did. What were we lacking in that didn't help them answer that appropriately? Or maybe we're wrong and they have the right answer. Instructors can be wrong too. We're not perfect, so we can all make mistakes. We are definitely we can all make those mistakes that can be detrimental. So we have to listen. We have to have an open mind and not a bias, and try to hear from their standpoint. It is a chance for them to get advantages. They could get some points back. Or, we could figure out again, like that we need to change the way we word certain questions on our tests so that they cannot struggle with that. We take the time in the beginning to make sure that our blueprint and our plan is what it should be, and our questions are, good questions, but there's always that one if that we miss on something. We learn, and we are going to make it better for the next time we do that test. Testing with our students is one of those things that should be taken very seriously, because it does affect them in their future, and it does give them a grade. I really appreciate you listening to me. I hope you have a good day. Thank you.